when thinking about the evolution of language, and truly enough, we don't have information about that, so it can only be indirect evidence that we can take. There is the discussion, would it be relevant to look at our closest sort of species relatives, that is the non-human primates, or maybe at other animals, that is birds, for example, that can process sequential structures quite well. And the entire discussion seems to go independently right now. So there is one group of people who try to make the relation between the non-human and the human primates with respect to structure, I think, which is very interesting, because we see that the non-human primates don't have the direct connection and strong connection between the analog of Broca's area to the temporal cortex. It is there, but it's not very strong. However, they have a strong other connection, that is the ventral connection, going from the inferior frontal gyrus to the temporal cortex. And this is relevant insofar as we have found that even 6 to 7-year-old children, don't have a strong connection between Broca's area and the temporal cortex, namely those children that are not yet able to process complex sentences. And we truly know that non-human primates cannot do so either. So the other idea is that another connection, other structural connection between the temporal cortex and sort of the frontal cortex may be relevant. That is the one between the temporal cortex and the premotor cortex or motor cortex. And this sort of seems to be there very early on in children, and sort of mediated by the parietal cortex, this connection is also there in the non-human primates. So now the interesting thing is, when looking at the behaviors of non-human and human primates, what you see is that non-human primates, they can figure out probabilities between different elements, but they cannot build a hierarchical structure that is necessary for language processing. There is some recent evidence that birds can do so, certain birds, certain songbirds. And now the discussion arises again. I mean, is there the possibility maybe that the birds can be used as a model, at least for the processing of structured sequences? Birds don't seem to have semantics. They use the sequences they are producing usually for mating sort of aspects. And now the idea is that there are certain groups that try to figure out whether they do have semantics of some kind, but it seems to be an open issue right now. Non-human primates, however, they can make the relation between particular symbols and reference in the outside world. So they have part of semantics at least. They can learn words. So maybe there are two different aspects that we find in different species, namely sequence processing on the one hand and semantic processing on the other. And then certainly the question is, how that comes together then in a sequence learning animal like the human being that has semantics at the same time. I rather think in terms of a toolkit where, I mean, genetically there sort of is a predisposition to, allow the processing of sequences and learn this. And another sort of trait, if you want, that is there for semantic processing, and how that comes together, sort of that's an open issue. So I think there are a lot of open issues, but interesting issues, because in the bird we can see vocal learning, and maybe this is part of sequence learning, but not enough, as we know.